Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Nonprofit Show. We're really excited that you are joining us today. We have Peter Heller on talking about the 3 M's for fundraising wins. Okay, Peter, I can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Nice to see you.
Great to see you. You know, Sherry and I talk a lot about fundraising on the show, off the show, in the green room. So this is going to be a lot of fun to hear what you have to say. You know, we also have some amazing conversations around our presenting sponsors, and they include Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, Nonprofit Thought Leader, Fundraisers Friday, our new episode shows dedicated to fundraisers and the work that they do just on Fridays, and then Your Part-Time Controller. Again, I'm Julia C. Patrick, CEO of the American Nonprofit Academy, joined today by the amazing Sherry Quam Taylor, CEO of Quam Taylor, one of our co-hosts. Welcome, Sherry.
Good morning. How are you today?
Great, great, great. I'm always happy when I get to see you. You know, Sherry is based in Chicago. I'm based in Phoenix. We always start our conversation with, what's the weather like?
I feel like it's so relevant with us. And then we added Maine to that today with Peter. So we have like all ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, it's like crazy. It's crazy that we can be in the same country and have such different environmental experiences. I always am amazed by that because I'm always like, isn't everybody else hot?
No, we're not. We're not, Julia. Rub it in.
No, I don't think of it as a good thing. I really don't. Well, Peter, as Sherry mentioned, you're coming to us from Maine. Peter Heller, CEO and founder of Heller Fundraising Group. You can find Peter and his team at hellerfundraisinggroup.com. Welcome, my friend.
It's great to see you again. I'm so honored to be back here.
Peter, you mentioned in the green room that you and your team are celebrating a really important milestone. What is it?
We're now 20 years old as a company, the Heller Fundraising Group. So old that we're going to get some confetti and animate our website.
Congratulations.
Yeah, we're excited to have been serving nonprofits and be actually like a viable company for 20 years.
Yeah. You know, Peter, I think it's amazing to do anything for 20 years. I don't care what it is, but to serve the nonprofit sector, it's even more amazing because it's such hard work. So congratulations. It's really exciting.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just going to say one interesting thing about that, which is simply when you've been doing something 20 years, you get pretty darn good at it.
Yeah.
And it's not like patting myself on the back. It's like, you know, geez, I still wish I was a rock and roll star, but this is what I'm good at. So like, you know, we can really help nonprofits quite well with the skill set that myself and my team have. So happy to be talking to you today. And I love that you refer to it as a green room, right? I mean, that's perfect for money.
Yeah, so we're set up.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
You're right. That's okay. Now you're going to have.
Yeah. I mean, I know everybody has them in performing, but like it's so appropriate for fundraising.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, well, I'm going to take that to my heart because I agree with you on this, and I love it. Well, let's get into it because you've got 3 M's, and this really is kind of the point with which we should be approaching all of our work. You boil it down. Key number 1, mindset. This is not what I thought you would have said.
Yeah. So let me just do the big reveal. The 3 M's are mindset, message, and method. So mindset is really the thing that anchors everything. And in fact, Julia, when we met a bunch of months ago and we talked about nonprofit limiting beliefs and how they affect fundraising, and I think we called it nonprofit self-esteem. Fundraising. Yeah, that really relates to mindset, because what we're talking about is, let's face it, the work of nonprofits is really difficult. Whether you're a new organization that just has an idea that you've come up with, or you've been doing the same thing for decades, you're pushing from the land of no into the land of hopefully yes. And to get there, you have to overcome other people's limiting beliefs, negative interpretations of things, and your own internal limiting beliefs. So it's really important that you find ways to go about counteracting those?
I actually was excited to see that this was the first M. Peter, I don't have 20 years, I have 12 or 13 here. I will tell you that this mindset piece in fundraising has become more and more important over the years because as I myself invested in coaches and realized, man, a lot of this work is mindset work, and that then helped my own business grow. Started seeing those characteristics in people I was coaching in fundraising. And so I feel like I can't bring up that topic real early because it feels a little woo. But man, mindset is 90% of it in my opinion. So I'm picking up what you're putting down on that front.
Yeah, so let me say a couple more things about it. One is that I actually, to your point, I actually introduced mindset at the end of a really, really important call with a client last week when we were delivering a feasibility study on their $20 million campaign, which actually we said you can't do it unless you turn it into a $100 million campaign for a whole lot of different reasons. Make it comprehensive and all kinds of things, because people just weren't getting this little piece of it. And at the end, I actually said, okay, I want to say one more thing. It's going to sound kind of woo-woo, but I'm going to say it. And it's that you've got to take the beliefs that your donors don't want to hear this. You don't want to do it. It's not possible. You've got to take that out of your own minds when you're communicating with people so that you can have a really positive trajectory of where you're going.
Yeah. So good.
And the other thing I wanted to say is I want to give a really tangible example of how mindset works and is important. And a lot of this really crystallized for me during the pandemic. And during the pandemic, I started thinking about, okay, there was the Great Recession of 2007, 2008, 2009. And I look back at the Giving USA data. And for those of you who don't know, the Giving USA data shows how much money is given away by people and companies and foundations and bequests in the US every year. In the Great Recession, it went down hundreds of millions of dollars. So it was at the $200 billion mark, above that. And it did go down. Usually it goes up every year. However, it did not go down from 200 something billion to zero.
Right.
And that's the really important point for mindset, is that the nonprofits that woke up in the morning during the Great Recession and were like, holy smokes, there's still a world that needs our help in however way we define helping. We're going to keep getting up in the morning and doing our job and sharing that with the message, which we'll get to in a minute. Using best fundraising practices, they kept raising money.
Yeah.
So it didn't go to zero. That means if you keep your mindset strong, you can keep raising money. And same thing happened in the pandemic. I'm not saying it was an easy time. I'm not saying any of that, but nonprofits raised millions and millions of dollars during both of those time periods.
Yeah, and the pandemic is a perfect example because quickly we heard we can't ask right now because of the pandemic.
Right.
Our clients probably both got some of the largest gifts of their lives, and so these are these invisible scripts that I feel that we have in the sector that really influence our mindset. So I see that.
Yeah.
Peter, when we first had you on the nonprofit show, you did use that really interesting description of self-esteem. And I've never heard anyone say that before. And it really dovetails obviously into mindset, but this concept that we are worth it, that we are a great investment, that we are a great vehicle for so many of our donor investors, no matter the size, if they're small, if they're large, whatever demographic they come from. And so I think that, is really the foundation for me when I hear this word mindset. We hear mindset so much. I mean, heck, yesterday we had on a guest that spoke about mindset and technology, right? I mean, so we're bandying this about quite a bit, but to break it down, to what we're talking about with fundraising, I think is really critical. And I really appreciate you kind of laying that foundation for us, Peter. Really interesting. Now I got to ask you, being in this profession for 20 years, how quickly did you observe that it was mindset from the day one, or is this something that you've come to follow?
I'm a slow learner. I don't know when, it's just having a lot of experiences over the years. I'd also say, I've been influenced by a lot of different people. One that comes to mind now is Lynn Twist, who wrote The Soul of Money. Took her fundraising workshop a whole bunch of years ago, was really inspired by her positive attitude and kind of put my own flavor on that. But I just, I've always been, I worked at Columbia University for 10 years prior to starting my business. And I was kind of a outlier there. Like, come on. I mean, we're Columbia University, but still you can do better.
Yeah.
I mean, tell, and I think we spoke about that, Julia, the last time, is that, the self-esteem thing connects to mindset in that I don't care where you work or how great the organization is. Every organization and the people at it have some internal negative language that they're talking to themselves. So that's, the bottom line on mindset is that, I mean, come on, if you don't think your nonprofit is work, that either pack up and go home, quit and get another job, or just close up the nonprofit, because there's enough other things that are worthwhile. So get with the program.
I appreciate the tough talk. I really do. I think it's really important. So we've got mindset, we've got an idea that we're worth it. We're talking ourselves up in the office, outside the office. We're looking in the mirror saying, go get them. We're going to do this. Key number 2 is message. What does that look like?
Okay. Message in some ways is really simple, but there are a few details to it I want to go over. So the first thing with message is you want to take that positive mindset and communicate it to your community and your donor audience. So when we work with clients at the Heller Fundraising Group, we always suggest the following thing. And this is kind of like a secret sauce, but I'm not afraid to
drop it on us today here.
Let people know, because there's a lot to taking the secret sauce and actually turning it into something. The most important thing, once you have you got your mindset all together, is you want to tell a story about the future of your community that's a positive story about how the future is going to be even stronger. Okay. The future of your community is going to be even stronger. Your nonprofit is simply the catalyst or the vehicle to do that. The problem that many nonprofits have is that they make themselves the hero of the story or the center of the story. The center of the story is really that community. If you're a social service organization, it's the people that you're serving, in your neighborhood. If you're the Metropolitan Opera in New York, it's the people who love opera, whether they're coming into the building or they're seeing it remotely. If you're a environmental group that's national or international in scope, the community is, the people who care about that, the environment that you're saving. You have to talk about how your work is going to make that stronger.
Mm-hmm. So Sherry, do you see people doing this or not, or missing this key piece?
I do see people missing this. Oftentimes, and sometimes I'll tell my clients, like I get it. I know you're the ones doing the hard work day to day, but that can't be the drum that we're beating.
No.
And sometimes I feel, I don't know, Peter, with you, I feel like people just haven't thought of it that way, and it's a little like, we could talk that way too. Like it's a well, we just have our heads down working, and so it's just
Totally.
kind of an aha moment.
Exactly. That's how I was going to describe it, is that one of the reasons we usually bring an external writer to help nonprofits with a case for support if it's a capital campaign, which is a lot of the work that we do. Because the internal folks, just like Sherry said, they just haven't thought like this.
Yeah.
And most of the time, it's not that complicated to change the perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Peter, you're speaking my language with the case for support. Objectivity is the most critical thing, because we're just heads down. I need that for my own business, or so the objectivity of having an outside expert writing your case for support, man, it's a game changer.
Yeah. So we also find, so I kind of think about the message a little bit as if you were writing a script for a movie. Now, I've studied this a bit. I'm totally not an expert, but I've studied it enough to be dangerous, I guess. That's what it is.
20 years of danger.
if you think about the story of any movie, regardless of the genre, the characters in that movie have obstacles that they come up against in order for the story to evolve. It's never like a rom-com. It's never like a joke and then they fall in love and it's over, right? There's always things that get in the way. So, and if you look at in even more detailed view, if you look at every single scene, a well-written movie, every scene has an obstacle that, usually, hey, you want to go to dinner? It's usually not great. There's like, oh, I'm busy. So, and then they break through to, yes, I'm going to go to dinner, or no, I'm not going to go to dinner. So it's the same thing when you're sharing that message, whether it's specifically in a more formal case for support document for a multi-million-dollar campaign, or it's simply your email, end of year appeal messaging. It's what is the roadblock that you can put up that says, our community in this neighborhood is amazing. However, the people are facing this challenge. Boom. Our nonprofit, once we raise this, fund or whatever, it's going to be able to serve this community even better to overcome these obstacles. It's there's a lot of different ways to do it, but you can also do it with a positive frame. It's like, this is where the community's at now. The community could get here, but they need these services or programs and money, and the money to do it is here. So as long as you've got you're rooted or anchored in that positive message about the future of your community being even stronger, you can do it in a number of different ways.
I love this, and I think it's a really interesting approach, because I think, and we might have lost Sherry here, so hopefully she'll be able to get back in. I think that the messaging is oftentimes what we see in front of us, right? And it's so hard to look into the future. And then I think also, as Sherry mentioned, we have an interesting, here she is. We have an interesting opportunity to bring back the conversation. And Sherry, I was just mentioning that, you use the phrase, we have our heads down and we're doing our work. And it's really hard to look into the future. It's really hard to see how we connect to other nonprofits, to other issues. But I think that this message is really key, because I think it helps funders and stakeholders buy in more to what you're doing. When they can see your work is going to link to other things that are going on, I think that's a win for everybody. And I think it's something we forget. We just think about our own nonprofit, right? Maybe our sector, but we don't really look about how we can be collaborative, if not in reality and spirit, right, with other organizations. So I really appreciate you bringing this up. I think it's really, really strong. Okay, let's go on to key number 3, method, because this is one of those things. What we're doing, how we're doing it. Talk to us about this, Peter.
Great, I will. There was one other thought on message. Oh, it's simple, and this relates to mindset and message and method. Is like, let's be honest, like changing your perspective and doing some of this work, it's not always easy. And we all have our limits.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is, there are limits to what I'm able to do in various ways. There's limits to what the actual individual staff members and board members at a nonprofit can do and conceive. So not everybody is capable of, infinite change.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, in practical terms, it comes down to sometimes, we're more, I don't know, we're more pushy than the nonprofit is ready to want to be. And we just have to move on.
Mhm.
Most
Okay,
of it works out well.
I love it. So when we talk about methodology and method, does everything have to be the same, or can we embrace our own attitudes and our own processes, or do you think that we need to kind of reframe that as well?
I'm not 100% sure what you mean. But so can you do
Well,
a clarifying question, answer on that?
it seems to me that a lot of organizations have a process, that this is the way they fundraise. And so this is what they're going to do. And then they don't step outside the box. They don't get additional training, or they don't get additional help. And generally they're not successful, but they just think they have to try harder. Talk to us about what you perceive method is. Like, how is it that we can take our
Yeah.
work and put it into a method?
Well, thank you for explaining, because it's a great question. And it really relates to that mindset and starting with the mindset, getting a good message, and then what's the method that you're going to use. And I remember years ago, I gave like an afternoon workshop to, I think like 20 nonprofit leaders on how to do certain things in fundraising. And, everybody was nodding their heads and then, and taking a lot of notes. And then the leader of the group at the end of this whole long thing, she gets up and she says, "Okay, now how are we going to raise money?" And I was like, I think I just kind of explained that. So
Wow.
you're absolutely right that if you want to succeed more than you're currently succeeding, and you can hide a lot of inefficiency behind a multi-million-dollar organization that's raising millions of dollars that isn't reaching its potential. So if you're going to work with us, we're going to push you on fine-tuning your methodology. We're not going to throw anything out because you're probably already doing good work. But let's get really practical for a minute. The mindset is really important, perhaps a bit more woo-woo. The message, you got to get crystallized. But then we live in a world where you want to get specific amounts of money into your nonprofit's bank account. And that takes communicating that message in specific methods. And what are the ways, you have to engage with people. You've got online things, you can bring them to your website, you can send emails, you can do social media, you can have galas, you can have other events, you can have little cultivation events. We work and all of those are important, as are one-on-one meetings with the most capable individual donors in your community. And that's none of these are mutually exclusive, but we work a lot with our clients on those major donors, whether they're in a capital campaign or they just need to raise more money, because it's kind of like the quickest way to the mother lode. I didn't mention foundation grants or corporate. Those are all really important. Foundations, you have to usually write the letter of inquiry, and then you wait, and then you get invited to write the grant. And then, it's 6 months or more. And it's not like you can get instantaneous money from an individual, but they're not encumbered by boards of directors and that sort of stuff. So the more that you can include individuals in your methodology, and I'm talking like every single month you need metrics for the amount of individual donor engagement you're going to do, not just like, oh, let me do it, in the springtime or whatever. And you need to take that message of the future of your community and share it in each of those methodologies. And actually last week we have a monthly Zoom solicitors brainstorming group. And last week we were actually talking about the annual fundraising calendar. And by that we meant, taking something simple like a Google Sheet or an Excel and just mapping out each month of your year, what are the activities you're going to do that engage your donor community, including your board meetings and other stuff like that. And then seeing whether you've got enough bandwidth to actually do all those things.
Right.
And
yeah.
And let me just tell you right now, if you're like working on the video that you're going to share with your audience, that's going to, the 5-minute video that's going to explain your nonprofit, and everybody in the organization is getting involved in this, it's like, that's not really where you should probably be spending your time.
No. It's really an interesting thing too, because I think when we talk about method, we get so bogged down with everything that has to get done that a lot of times it's easier just to disengage, because it's so hard to determine what you have to do, when you have to do it, and just get it done and start moving through those tasks. So I appreciate you calling out, what's going on. It makes me crazy when I look at really talented fundraisers turning into event planners. It makes me crazy. It's like it's really an obscene amount of time, money, and energy that trashes a team when they could be doing other things and really getting in front of decision makers. Wow. For me, it's just such a misplacement of talent. And so it's one of those things that I love your idea of tracking this out for the whole year, which we should be doing anyway. Hello. It should be a basic concept. And then really, understanding what it's going to take and how we're going to work through it. Sherry, this has been fun, hasn't it?
It has. I feel like Peter and I need to know each other in a greater way. So I've enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, it's been really, really amazing. Peter Heller, really been fun to chat with you again, CEO and founder of Heller Fundraising Group. You can find more out about Peter and his team at hellerfundraisinggroup.com. He's got some great video pieces on his site where he interviews and talks with other fundraisers and hears their story and talks about certain things that are really interesting for anyone that's out there in this space, especially bigger picture issues like capital campaigns and looking at larger strategy for bigger events such as capital campaigns or endowments. So go to hellerfundraisinggroup.com and learn more about what their work is. Sherry Quam Taylor, always a delight to have you, my friend.
Thanks for having me, as always.
It's been a lot of fun. We have amazing sponsors, and they include Bloomerang, American Nonprofit Academy, Staffing Boutique, Nonprofit Thought Leader, Fundraisers Friday, and Your Part-Time Controller. These are the folks that really make a difference in so many communities, but certainly in the nonprofit community. We've had a lot of comments that have come in through the day, through the morning. And so, Peter, one of them I'm going to give a shout out to one of our viewers. It says, mindset is huge. Great reminder.
So. Thanks. And by the way, anybody can email me at peter@hellerfundraisinggroup.com. Happy to talk to anybody.
Okay, great. Awesome. Well, as we end each and every episode of the Nonprofit Show, we leave with this message. It's pretty simple, but it's also pretty complicated. And it goes like this: to stay well so you can do well. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you again.